Okay, so first of all, we'll introduce ourselves because you may not know either or both of us. And then Edson's going to take the first couple agenda items and then we'll kind of get right into the system. So I'll just introduce myself first so he can dive right in after his. My name is Gretchen O'Sullivan. I'm the Director of Data Quality at the National Office. A lot of you know me from our legacy CISDM, which we've had for a number of years, and I've done the testing and technical assistance for that since I started here in 2011. And as you should know by now, legacy CISDM is going to be no more as of this fall, essentially. So we are moving into CISDM 2.0. And that's what you're here to see today. So Edson, would you like to tell people who the heck you are?
Hi, yes, and I'm sure a lot of you probably don't know who I am for sure. So my name is Edson Acevedo. I am the project manager for CISDM 2.0 development and implementation. I work very, very, very closely with one of my favorite colleagues here, Gretchen, who's helping transition a lot of the system processes and information from legacy CISDM over into CISDM 2.0. Again, I'm tasked with leading this effort, and we've been running a successful pilot as of last school year, really building out the system. Kind of want to, before we get into the expectations in our second bullet, give you guys just a brief overview of our pilot and kind of the understanding of CISDM 2.0 and where we are. When we started this at the beginning, just a little before the beginning of last school year, when we chose our vendor in Caseworthy and their system, which is also cleverly named Caseworthy. We started building it out. It is a customizable tool off the shelf, and we believe that it really is the tool that will allow us to promote not only the CIS model, the way we want to establish it, but also allow the flexibility to allow local affiliates to capture data over time. And so we'll run through some of that with you guys. In our pilot, what we've mostly done is work with our affiliates. We've had about 13 affiliates and I believe two partners that have been truly critical for feedback as we develop live within a production environment as well as a test environment, and learning from the network, learning from users directly, using things like office hours and our bi-weekly or weekly mandatory data admin meetings to learn directly from users like yourself on how best to implement system processes, how best to implement user interface tools. So, we're really excited to round out the school year. We're finishing up some of the development now to match the end of the school year processes that we have at communities and schools. And we're making some changes for next year too. So we'll actually show some of that within the demonstration of CISDM 2.0. It's unlike, in kind of our view, unlike legacy CISDM, CISDM 2.0 is a lot more interactive and will be a lot more, have a lot more wealth of information exposed to the user, not only for the data administrator and affiliate level or state office users, but really to the site coordinator. And we have just a few expectations. So we'll jump into that second bullet point for the data administrator role. And as we kind of go into the demonstration, I'll be using a few terms. So when I call a data admin role, that is a system role, right? It's not a job role. We don't expect everyone to be a data administrator just because you're now accessing the system. The data admin role is really, excuse me, is really kind of like a supervisor within the system. They have access to the largest level of information and also some administrative rights within the system to set up schools, set up users, things of that nature. And again, we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But as we continue to mature the system, we realize that there are going to be some system roles that will apply to specific job roles. And we understand that the data admin role in the way that it's built out today and used today is not necessarily going to be applicable for everyone, right? The site coordinator role, however, is more adept and a lot more boxed into those users that work at the site or at the school and work directly with students and provide those supports and capture data, right? So that role will probably not change too much. But we imagine that the data admin role and the future roles will have some variation of that data admin aspect. So as we roll out the system to you all this summer, there will be multiple people that can do these administrative functions if you all choose, and we're leading that up to the affiliate or the state office to make those decisions on who's really going to be kind of the front line when it comes to these administrative functions. So just please keep that in mind. Okay. So I do see a question here. It looks like someone raised their hand, so someone's used to WebEx. Nikki Cooper. I don't know, Gretchen, if you need to unmute her, or if she needs to just unmute herself and wants to ask a question.
Let's see. Let me be the presenter. I don't know if I give you privileges to do that. Scrolling down.
And if it really becomes too cumbersome for this whole unmuting thing, maybe it's just best to put the question in the chat box.
That's true. Especially scrolling down for all these people to get to the ends. If you wouldn't mind, Nikki, to just give us your question in the chat box, and if we can answer it right now, we certainly will.
Yeah, and I do fully expect there to be a lot of questions surrounding, the future state of managing the system and administration. So, okay. So I can share my screen now, right?
Yes.
Okay. Great. All right.
Okay, well, there's a lot going on your screen. Okay, there you go.
All right, great. You can see my screen, Garrett?
Yeah.
Just take it, if you can see that.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
All right. So this is the look of the landing page for the data admin role. So when you jump into CISDM 2.0, your dashboard will look something like this. Of course, this is kind of a very aggregated view, and also, will be contextualized for the information that you are supposed to see based on your affiliate assignments or based on your school assignments. So today you're looking at, again, a very aggregated look from the national level. And so we are, again, kind of fully expecting you guys to be able to see what you're supposed to be seeing, and not something quite as robust in information like what we have here. But in any case, the icons will look the same. Some of the same queries will be there. And so dashboard in CISDM 2.0 is meant to kind of provide these quick snapshots of information based on some of the founding ideas. And I say founding because these queries could certainly change, and so could the visualizations, to express different information. So what we're seeing, for example, under the data admin toolbox are the icons to get to reports, to manage your affiliate, to look at a caseload by the affiliate or by the school, and to enter also activity management, initiatives management, or to create some templates for you and your staff. On the right-hand side, the colorful pie chart is a query that's looking at total supports by our support categories and how many hours have been provided. These are all manageable directly on the interface or directly on the screen. So for example, you notice that academic assistance is kind of a big pie number here. So it's expressing 48,000 hours based on, again, the affiliates that I'm assigned to, which are everyone in our pilot. If I wanted to take academic assistance away and just look at the rest of them without it, I could click on that and it'll change what that pie looks like. I can also click within and drill down, for example, into something like case management, and it'll show me those hours by school. Again, there's some limitations in the query right now to say we only want to see up to 10 schools or up to 15 schools, and we can certainly change that, and we will be changing that as we kind of get into the summer to see what kind of the appropriate number is to have there. In any case, that's a look at some of the functionality within the dashboard and being able to really interact with data immediately. Again, as we scroll down, dashboard will also have some charts that provide some specific information, and again, some more visualizations, not only in pie charts, but also in bar charts, could be line graphs, just whatever look that we want to give the data that applies best to the information that we're trying to highlight. Okay. All right. So again, looking at the icons, the first thing that you'll notice is, again, just a very interactive interface. So if we clicked on something like reports, for example, it'll just take us to that page or to that dashboard. You'll notice that dashboards have these nice looking icons, where forms, as we'll show you later, are more of a text entry or a selection that you're making. So we've gone from, at this point, the administration dashboard over to reports and summaries dashboard. Again, these might change as we get into next year. We'll be adding more canned reports, potentially more summaries, and those will be available to you all within the same space. So you won't have to go to different places to find your reports or to find these summaries.
Do you want to show them the site coordinator and student dashboard?
Sure. Yeah. So again, what we're looking at here is kind of on the administration side. These are things that your site folks won't see. What they will land on is actually going to be the site coordinator dashboard, which looks similar, but exposes different information. So this is more based on their assignments and their schools that they're assigned to on a more individual level. You all will also have access to this dashboard, but again, it'll be more contextualized for the users that own the caseload and that are doing the work here. So for example, for them, if they wanted to look at their caseload, they certainly could. There's an icon for it right on the site coordinator dashboard to click into, and then be able to look at the cadre of information available in the summary, where they can choose a different student if they wanted to and access that student record. So by clicking on, for example, Matilda, we will be navigating over into the student side, which is the student dashboard, where the student record will pull up. So you'll notice that the student record is showing here, so we see some of the basic demographics. Again, a pretty quick snapshot of the student record. So name, birthday, grade level. Also see enrollment history, how many supports are provided. Again, all of these are queries running in the back to expose this information and highlight it, a very quick and easy way to look at it. We also have, again, because this is a dashboard, more icons that are based on what can be done with the student or information that can be found out about the student. So again, we have student contact, parent guardian consent, and case notes. We also have entry areas like Tier 2-3 support, case management. We also have areas for the assessment, planning, and monitoring. So in this case, CISDM 2.0 includes areas to complete a student needs assessment, also the student support plan, and also monitor the progress as those entries are made. So this is all available, again, kind of on both sides of the house, so not only as the data administrator, but also as a site coordinator role. So if we're looking at a student record as a data administrator, this would be the same place that we would go to find that record and find that information, is the student dashboard. Okay, so some of the baseline functionalities that are always going to be consistent throughout the experience of using CISDM 2.0, and just some basic navigation for you guys, are going to be things like having the student record that you're currently accessing on the left-hand corner. So if you're in the, we call this the case management area, and if you're looking at my screen, there's like a little suitcase up here, right, that says case management. If you hover over it, the little wrench is called the administration area. And so right now we're in the case management area. So if you're in the case management area, you'll notice a few things. The first is the student record that you're accessing is always going to be produced in the top left-hand corner. So in this case, even if I move over into Site Coordinator Dashboard, I'm always on Matilda Test record. That's always available to me if I go back to the student dashboard. Right? It's a quick, easy way to know where you are and what student you're working with. The next is, and this is in particular because CISDM 2.0 is a web-facing tool that accesses a live database. It's also able to be used on mobile devices, tablets, phones, things of that nature. And so sometimes it may be easier to look at something like these dashboards or a form in a greater view. And so CISDM 2.0 takes this into account. So there's like three little lines up here next to the case management area that if you click on, it actually maximizes that space. So if you're on a much smaller screen, that may be the best way to look at it. But that option is available mostly for those kind of circumstances. Okay. Again, because this is a browser-facing tool, this is not necessarily a website that we're looking at. We're really interacting directly with a live database. So it's really important not to use your browser functions. And when I say that, I mean like the back button, reload, right? Anything like that up in the browser area, even closing windows within Caseworthy can have some pretty odd effects. And so they have built-in buttons that say cancel, say done, say next, or save, that will produce the desired functions, right? So we don't want to use the refresh function if something isn't working, or we don't want to use back if we want to move back a page. Instead, if we wanted to move in between, excuse me, in between pages or see the history of where we've been in the system, what we can use is there's like a little ellipsis here that produces kind of the navigation, right? These are like the breadcrumbs, we call it breadcrumb navigation. So if you really have access to a lot of areas within the system and you'd like to go back to it, you could just go back by using that breadcrumb navigation and moving back within the tool. The next, again, kind of constant, and this is true for everywhere in the system, is the user area. And what we call that is, if you can see my name up in the right-hand corner, it also shows me what role that I'm in the system. It's a small drop-down. It allows you to choose between affiliates if you're assigned to multiple affiliates, and to choose the schools available. It also allows you to choose between roles. So in some cases, like for example mine, because we use these to test out the different functionalities within our system, it may be a case where we may have some users with multiple roles that may play two different roles within our system. If that were the case, that'd be where they choose that. And then lastly, something that you guys won't see at least soon, at least immediately, is Role App Builder, which is one of the development or customization tools. But this is also the area where you would log out of the system officially, right? Officially log out. If you just close out your browser, it would ultimately force you out. But certainly there's a log out button. Okay. What are the things, and I'll move over into the administration area. So again, this is the administration dashboard. You'll notice that the affiliate that you're working in will show again in the left-hand corner, so similar to that student record. In this case, it's going to be the affiliate that you're accessing. We'll show on that left-hand record, the one that's again populated within the user area. And one of the things that we've tried to do is limit the amount of menu items within the administration area, since they're again kind of generic and used between everyone. Again, as we kind of move into how different roles look and are shaped within our system, that might be different. There may be some menu items on the left. For now, we feel like the icons that are available and how to get to those areas should suffice on this dashboard. Okay, so we'll jump over into student search. There's a few things that we need to talk about when it comes to searching and finding students, right? And we've talked about one of them, which is the caseload, right? Right now, we're going to talk about just generally finding a student within our system, right? So the find student search, and again, and much like most pages that you'll run into, are developed in such a way that looks at the assignment, looks at your affiliate assignment or school assignments in order to produce the desired search results. In our case, what we're going to do is type in, the last name of a student. We'll click search, and that'll provide me with all of the students within, again, my own assignment that are labeled, with the last name test, right? We could also look this up by entering more information if we wanted to, or less information. So, for example, if we wanted to look for Doug Test, and we typed in TE for the last name and DO for the first name, it provides a pretty accurate result, and actually, because there's only one, it throws me right into their student record. If we wanted to search by student ID and we had that available to us, we could easily put that student ID in. Again, that search result will populate. I'm already on the record, so it's not going to throw me over there. And the last, again, we can search by birthday. And that'll provide us with a calendar lookup tool to put in that birth date, or we can manually enter it if we wanted to. Okay? These kind of summary forms, like find student search, are, this area is just like one big hyperlink, right? There's no other entry besides the search area. So when those student records are pulled up, whatever you click on, whatever you identify, is what's going to put you into that student record. Okay. The next area that we're going to talk about are workflows. And workflows are meant to guide users through a very standard process of entering information. So we're no longer going to use just regular data entry forms in many cases. Again, that we're going to, especially for these larger kind of processes, we're going to use these workflows, and it standardizes the way that we're capturing information, and it makes it really predictable as we go through. So if you've done something one time, if you've added a student within our system, you've done it 100 times, and it just gets easier over time because it just doesn't change, right? The information that you're entering and what you need to have available to you won't change. In this case, we're just going to add a fixed student for you guys today. So we'll demo out what a workflow looks like and kind of walk you through this process, and then we'll start the student needs assessment, even though we won't finish it, so you guys can kind of understand the way this works. So kind of from the top here, right, as we add a brand new student into CISDM 2.0, we'll start out with the add student workflow. And again, this for those of you coming over from Legacy CISDM, which should be the majority of you who have not experienced CISDM 2.0, when we talk about adding a student record, we simply mean that we are adding a student record. We are not enrolling or activating the student for case management. We're not going to be working with the student necessarily. We're truly just adding a record and creating that to use later, which again will be part of the second workflow that we're showing you. So if you're looking at my screen, you'll notice that the workflow has a few areas that we need to take a quick look at. The first is the title of the workflow that you're working on, the top left-hand corner. That's always going to be the case. The next are the topic areas, or the titles, right under it. And the workflows are meant for you to kind of drive forward through the workflow. So each each title that you're looking at is another form for data entry. And again, these are all going to be in the same order. They won't change. And so as you continue to add students, you'll know, first thing is a question, the next thing is student demographics, the next thing is parent-guardian consent, right, and so on and so forth. And so, we believe that making this predictable and making this very, kind of standard way of capturing information will really help our users out in the long term. So we'll start out with a question, which is, have you received parent-guardian consent to enroll the students? In this case, we'll say yes. If we were to choose no, though, it would actually exit us out of the workflow because we do require parent-guardian consent, and we want to make sure that we have it. Again, there is an area, there will be a form later on to provide that parent-guardian consent. In the bottom right-hand corner, we'll hit save, and we'll move forward. All right, so this is again, because this is our first time adding a student record, we also want to make sure that there aren't existing duplicate records. So this search tool, similar to kind of our find student search, is going to search first for duplicate records for us. So we can enter in the first name, the last name, the student ID. We can enter it all at once. Our preference is that you would enter one data type at a time. In this case, what I'm going to do, because this is student ID is a unique number per affiliate within our database, I will enter in that student ID that I'd looked for earlier, right, which belongs to Doug Test. I will check for duplicates, and you'll notice that Doug Test pops up, right? He's already in our system. If I chose to do this as a new client, it's going to fail me later. We're not going to expose that necessarily to you. We just want you guys to understand, because student ID is a unique number, that it will not allow this to go through. However, for today's purposes, we'll create a brand new student that we don't have. Just bear with me as I type slowly.
Like changing the type each?
Something like that. Again, we'll check for duplicates. You'll notice that the duplicate search comes back with no results. It's pretty safe to say this is a new student or a new client for us. As a step form, you'll notice that next is the available option here. And just so you guys are aware, next and save are two very different things. Next just allows us to move forward, but doesn't necessarily save this information until we find a save button. We do have validation rules built into our system so that we can't add someone that was born today. You'll notice that if I try that, it gives me an invalid age. I believe our age range is between 3 and 30. I think it might be less.
I think something like that.
But somewhere in that area. And so we want to make sure that we're putting in a valid age and that we're not trying to test the system or game the system on this one, as it will kick back. So let's say we're adding a 13. Yep, 13-year-old. Again, some of the options that you're used to seeing, maybe something like this kind of normal drop-down list. One of the available functionality features within CISDM 2.0 is a multi-select list that allows us to choose one or more of any of the options within. So you notice that our language list gets pretty big. If you do have an other that you wanted to add, we could use that other and then also provide the language other here. In this case, we'll add selected. Those will pop up. Again, if we have other, we'll specify there, or we'll specify it in the language other. Then we'll provide a race for the student. And let me just take that other specify off. It also asks us if if there's any previous involvement with CIS. In this case, we'll just choose no. You guys probably have already figured out that there's also some validation rules on options that you might choose that will provide you with areas to provide more information. In this case, if we were to choose yes, you'll notice that it gives us a entry area for that previous affiliate name. Again, we'll choose no on this one and just move forward. We'll hit next. Again, that'll drop us into the next area, not saving the information necessarily yet. We'll provide an address here. This is one of these. This is one of the areas that I kind of want to concentrate a little bit of time on, because this will likely come up as you get into training and as you get into the production environment and your users are using the system. So It's really important to pay some very close attention here. So first, all of the areas that are required are marked with a small star. So you'll notice that address and zip code, and there's one at the bottom called verify address that we're going to talk about here in a second, all have required stars next to them. So that means that information has to be input here. In this case, what we'll do is I'm going to put the national office, because the student lives here with me, address in here. For the zip code is a lookup, and what that allows us to do is actually input information in a very quick manner. So if I were to choose our zip code here in Virginia and hit search, you'll notice that it also populates or auto-populates the county, the city, and the state. Very good. Verify address allows us to geographically locate this location, which I realize that there are not a lot of you that use this functionality today. At the national office, we're extremely interested in this, and there are some affiliates that are also interested in this. But it allows students to be, that address to be verified. It provides us with that latitude and longitude, which, at some point later on, we can use analytics to help us figure out not only where our students are generally located, the supports we're providing to them, distances, things of that nature. We'll be using that for those types of purposes. But verify address is kind of a quote unquote soft requirement. If I were to click within this area, anywhere within this address area, it'll go ahead and lift that requirement off of it. If I did not want to use this, I still have to access this area, but I could choose to make verify address not mandatory, which is a one-time kind of lift on the requirement. If we were to go back into the student demographics form later, though, it will ask us to repeat this process. For today, we'll go ahead and verify this address, and we'll move forward. Go ahead next. And then lastly, we'll provide some contact information for this fake student. All right. So in the step form, you notice that the outline titles are above, and that we've gone through a series of data entry areas so far. So with this now allows us to reach the bottom of the form. You'll notice that it no longer says next, it says save. Again, because we're accessing the database directly and live feeding information, save is the only way to actually capture that information. If we were to exit out of this workflow right now and just close out our browser button, like I said, we shouldn't, then this information will not be saved at all. It just won't be captured. We'll hit save and we'll make sure that we get through this page. Next area, again, parent-guardian consent. We can add a new parent-guardian consent. We'll provide a begin date as a required field. We can choose whether there's media consent available or whether it's not applicable. And we can also choose to upload consent. So if we have that actual parent consent document with us and it's scanned into our computer, we can also upload it into the system. So if we have it, we can choose browse. I will just choose one of these logos here for now and upload that. And when we're done, we can choose save. You notice that the summary page now has some information, right? It provides us with a snapshot of what's going on. If we choose the little gear icon, we have an option to either edit that consent. Maybe we put in the wrong date. Maybe it does have the media permissions and we want to say yes instead of no. We can also choose to view the file that we've put in. Right, so there it is. If this were a document, it would allow us to either open or save that. We can also choose to delete the parent consent if we've made an error somewhere and we just wanted to delete it. In this case, we'll choose done.
And I just want to jump in really quickly here, just based on the questions that we've been getting in the chat box. The other ones I'm going to save till the end, so I haven't ignored you if you asked a question. But a couple people were wondering about timing out of the system, if the system is going to kick you out after a certain amount of time if you haven't entered data or if you walk away temporarily. So I think we've set it to 20 minutes. Okay, it might become 20 minutes, but there will be a specific time that we will let you all know that somebody has to use that page essentially within that time frame. So part of the magic of the workflow is that you can see on the left-hand side, as Edson is going through these, that the star is your current page, and as soon as you're done with it, it goes to the next page and becomes a check mark. So you can see that he has completed 3 whole pages, and he's currently on the 4th page out of the form, essentially was what we call them, out of the entire workflow. So you don't have to save the entire workflow in that time period. I'm sure you were going to say this, but they seem concerned. Mm-hmm. But you do have to save each page to be able to move on and not lose that information. So the first one, the student demographics essentially, which was a steps form, as Edson said, you had to move through those 4 different sections before you got to a save button. So if you had left or closed out your browser or done something like that, when you came back in, that information would be gone. As long as you hit the save button, then that is now in the system. You can come back and pick up where you left off in that workflow. So you don't have to do the entire workflow all at once. You do have to do one entire form all at once to click save.
And so, and just so you guys are aware, and you're right, Gretchen, I was going to talk about that. I wanted to get into that student needs assessment workflow so you guys could actually see that functionality in action. Yeah. Is there something else?
No, I think the other ones can wait till the end for now.
Great.
Thanks.
No problem. Again, an add student workflow, we're looking at primarily adding parent guardian consent. There is another area to add other contacts. In this case, you may find some forms or see some forms that are pretty explicit. In this case, this is one of them, where we're saying all we want are parent guardians at this point, right? If all you're doing is adding a student record, there are no plans necessarily to work with this student, and you're just adding the record to be able to keep it and reach it later, then all we're worried about at this point is the parent guardian. So we'll say we'll add this student's parent, which I don't know if in the book it said the parent's name, but we'll say it's also an emergency contact, and we'll add that cell phone number for that parent. Right. Again, just enter just some kind of light information here to kind of keep moving this forward. And again, you'll notice that that information becomes available in the summary. If at any point we say, you know what, let me go ahead and just add the email now that I have it, we can go ahead and edit that, or again, we can delete that. We'll choose done for now and keep moving. The last page on here is a referral information. Again, if we have referral information. In this case, the only required field is the referring party. We can choose between, again, the drop-down list that's here. If we have a referral that we want to enter, in this case, it's just one referral that we're asking for if one exists. We'll just choose CIS staff for this case, and we'll kind of move forward through this workflow and finish it out. Okay? At the end of every workflow, you'll notice that it says the workflow is complete. It will say what steps were taken, right? What forms were filled out. It'll also give a completed date. And you'll notice that the completed date, you may say, well, should all always be the same, right? What's the point of that? Well, if we're stopping a workflow, which is, again, what I'm going to show you here in just a second, you may have different dates on when things were completed. So we'll hit done. We'll finish out the workflow. And we'll notice that the student dashboard is the first area that we're brought to. So these workflows, just so everyone understands, were kind of built with some kind of general knowledge of how things mostly work. Again, in this case, we've added a new student record, so that record is now available to us to search within our system. If we are going to work with this student and we want to enroll them, assign them a case manager, assign them a school, then we'll work through our needs assessment for that. The needs assessment is a much greater, it's a much more robust workflow, as it includes a lot more forms. But a lot of the forms we've already filled out, and so we're just doing some validation. So we'll access the student needs assessment. Again, the first form that we're going to see is the student demographics form. We'll notice that that information is already pushed over. If we've decided to wait on the student needs assessment to work with them, we just added the student record just to add some students, we'll work with them later, then that information will show up here and then we can just revalidate from here. If none of this has changed, we'll just walk right through it. We'll hit save and we'll move forward. For student enrollment, we'll provide the enrollment date. So potentially the enrollment date could be today, or it could have been a week or so ago, depending on when we started working with the student. We can go back up until the beginning of our system program year, which starts, and Gretchen, correct me if I'm wrong here, July 1st. And so we could go as far back as that. In this case, we're going to put today's date. We'll enter the school year, in this case, 16-17 school year. We'll also provide a school and provide the grade level. We'll say they're in 7th grade. We can also provide a response to public assistant program participation if they belong to any of these. If they don't, we can leave it blank. We can also tag a student with an initiative, and those initiatives are created by the data admin role. If there are any, they'll appear here, and depending on the time frame, they will either be there or not be there. So as we create initiatives and we walk you guys through that training, you'll notice that initiatives also have begin and end dates, and then those will reflect appropriately in this drop-down. We'll tag them with this initiative for today. In the bottom half of this form, it allows us to assign a case manager to the student or a support specialist, basically the person going to be leading the efforts working with the student. We can choose from a drop-down of folks within our system, or I'm sorry, within our affiliate that are assigned, that we could assign as a case manager. In this case, I'm going to choose myself. CISDM 2.0 also has the functionality. Let's assume that we're enrolling the student for someone else for some reason. We could also create an email and send it out to that person directly from the system. And they'd be notified that they now have a student assigned to them. We can also add information. This is just rich body text. We can change the subject if we wanted to, and write in anything else that we wanted. Again, this is just kind of the template that's available within the system. In this case, I'm just going to hit cancel because I'm not going to send it to myself. And I'll hit save at the bottom right hand of the form, and that'll save the student's enrollment. So now they're assigned to a case manager that's assigned to a school and assigned to a program year. Again, parent guardian information is already, excuse me, is already here, so we can go right through this if we wanted to. But this workflow can get pretty lengthy. As you guys can see, there's a lot of forms here on the left-hand side. Some of these are summary forms and some of them are input forms. Summary forms are labeled appropriately. And we can also get down into the attendance, behavior, and course performance or academics baseline to add those. To Gretchen's point, what if we needed to stop? This is, again, a pretty lengthy workflow. And let's say that we've gotten as far as we can, we're being interrupted. We don't want to close out using that browser option. What we want to do is use this teardrop menu that's available to us on the right-hand side of the form. And we can use this option for save progress and close. And that will actually take up until this point, because the current page hasn't been saved, but the student enrollment and student demographics prior have been saved. So that will save those areas for us. So I'll click on Save Progress and Close. And it'll take us back out to the student dashboard. First thing we'll see is that the student dashboard is starting to paint itself out. So you'll notice the student demographics, that snapshot is now available at the top, along with the enrollment history. Student hasn't received any supports yet, so those areas are going to be blank. There are also no other available queries with information that will pull at this point. So if we were interrupted at some point and we decided, I have to leave my desk, I have to leave my computer, an hour, 2 hours later down the road, okay, I'm going to go ahead and finish this student needs assessment, come back into the system, find the student's record. and I go back into that icon for student needs assessment, instead of just opening up that workflow, you'll notice that the system immediately says, hey, there's an open workflow for this student already, right? Because we've saved it. By clicking within, by clicking within that record, similar to kind of like how Find Student Search works, it'll take us right back to the page where we left off, right? And we won't lose any of that information that we've already entered. We won't have to re-enter it. We'll just start right back off where we left off, which was the parent guardian contact information, right? Again, that'll be saved there. It could be hours, it can be days, and then by the time we get down to the end of that workflow, you know, that summary may look a little different, right? It may not have, 4/26/2017 for completed dates, may have a couple of different dates on there as we continue to save, close, and reopen the workflow.
Thank you very much, Edson, for all of that. I just wanted to add a couple things, kind of comparing the new system to the old system. Obviously, you guys see how different it looks, and that there are a lot of, we didn't have dashboards before, and these icons are, like, all of that is different. But these few items that I wanted to mention are also kind of different in the way that we're thinking about tracking data. And yeah, so I'm just going to jump right into that. Can I take my thing back from you, or do you have to give it to me? Can I make myself a presenter?
I don't know how to give it back to you.
Let's see if it works. Oh, okay. I'm going to just take it from you.
Just take over. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Okay. Now. All right, so.
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay, so one of the items that I wanted to mention was site coordination. Currently, and these are all kind of related to how we currently track Tier 1, 2, and 3 student supports in legacy system. There are a number of different categories. One of them is site coordination, which is only relevant at the Tier 1 level, and one of them is case management. Well, now we've rethought a few of these and pulled them out entirely. So site coordination, as you can see, is underneath Tier 1 support entry as its own entry page. Essentially, you know, this is a site coordinator doing their job from day to day. I can show you kind of some of the examples of what is currently called support, but will be called something else probably. Community partner meetings and event planning and things like that, as opposed to direct service to students. Actually, now I will go to I will go back to the site coordinator dashboard. And the other item that's kind of at the school level or the site coordinator dashboard level is basic needs and resources. We've pulled this out to kind of distinguish it from direct service, even though obviously you're directly providing these essential resources to students. A lot of these are better captured in terms of how many units did you give out, meaning like how many backpacks, how much money was that worth, instead of saying, oh, it took me an hour to hand out backpacks. It really makes more sense. The value of the support is often in the items that you provide. Some of these are intangible items, as you can see. Like crisis intervention isn't the same thing as giving out backpacks, so different fields might pop up, and then you would track hours for that one. So, but we're just kind of thinking of this type of service provision as a separate entity than academic assistance and behavior intervention and all of those other sorts of things. If you want to talk about that kind of thing further, definitely contact me and we can talk through that. But that's just one thing you'll notice is tracked differently in this new system. The final thing in that vein is on the student dashboard. We have the check-ins as a separate item, as a separate icon. And that I think people should really appreciate, I hope, because there was a lot of confusion in the old system about what counts as a check-in and how do you track it. Does it have to be called check-in? we have a completely separate entry for a check-in if that's all you're doing with the student, if you're just meeting with them specifically to talk about, and you'll see these options below, about their goals, about the supports they're receiving, any progress they're making, or personal kinds of stuff, personal issues. But we also provided the ability, I go back to the student dashboard again, to say that this occurred, that a check-in occurred during a regular Tier 2 or 3 support. Is that in here? There it is. Sorry, we just recently added this. So if you scroll down to the bottom, obviously the site coordinator will have filled out all of this student support entry, very, very similar to what you had before in CISDM, with the addition of extra providers now. You don't have to just choose one. But at the bottom, you'll see a checkbox for did a check-in occur. So instead of having to go and do a completely separate entry for the check-in, even though it occurred while you were, mentoring a student or talking to him about something completely different, you can say that it happened during that time. He was in, maybe it was, a group that was for an anger management, support group kind of thing, and you talk to them about their goals and the supports that they're receiving. That counts as a check-in, so you can just kind of throw it right in here. And I know it's close to 3, so I wanted to make sure to leave time for questions. I have a list of questions that were in the chat box, and I'm sure other people want to say some more too. I wanted to, though, okay. Share the training schedule before we get into questions and then run out of time. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Edson, about the system itself?
No, not immediately. Suppose through training, you guys will see how to, running reports is very, very easy.
Yeah.
Exporting information is super, super easy. And so, we're really looking forward to showing you guys that functionality during training. It's no more than a click or two, so it's really, really easy to use.
Yeah, I hope that everybody will agree with that. So just really quickly, now you're all aware of, I assume you're all aware of the timeline for the national rollout that we sent to you previously, and it showed when the different sites would be released, the testing site, the training site, the production site, and general timeline for trainings. Well, now we've kind of specified specific dates. This is the data administrator training schedule. It's a little shorter than the site coordinator one. We have a part 1 and part 2 of our overall data admin virtual training, and those will be the first 2 weeks in May that are after that the system is available, essentially right after town hall. And then we have created a train the trainer opportunity on site at the national office that I think everybody is aware of. Some of you are attending virtually, and some of you are actually coming here to participate, and that will be June 6th and 7th. And then that will allow you, hopefully, to have the capacity to support your site coordinators as they learn how to use the system. We kind of are leaving some of this up to the affiliates and state offices, how you want to schedule your trainings for your site coordinators, whether you want them to participate in these in real time, or they will be recorded, so you can kind of require that everybody watches the videos. Maybe you all get together at one day when they come back from their summer break and watch all the videos together. Whatever works for you. But essentially, you'll see the topics along the left-hand side. There are a half a dozen right now. We kind of put them into chunks based on what a site coordinator would need to do first, and then kind of chronologically throughout the year. And the same session will occur 2 times in 1 week. So we will talk about the general navigation and doing the school needs assessment and support plans as a first step the week of June 5th, and we will do the exact same, essentially the exact same training Monday and Thursday in real time, so those people who are participating can ask questions. And then for everybody else, it'll just be recorded, and they can watch it at their leisure. These will essentially, they'll probably be scheduled for an hour, including questions. I know that people aren't going to want to sit for too long and learn for, like all day. So that's another reason why we made these, kind of week by week, so you don't get too overwhelmed. And yeah, is that all that I had for the training schedule? And yes, I can provide these dates too. You don't have to memorize them or write them down right now, but I just want to make sure that everybody is aware that we have nailed down a more specific schedule than we had before. So right now, I'm going to go through the questions that I saw in the chat box. You can keep adding questions, and we'll see if I can track all of them. All right. And some of them, if they're more appropriate for another training, some of these were very specific, and we can definitely provide guidance on those during the trainings. But in general, there are some topics I think would be of interest to everybody. So somebody asked, and now I don't remember who, so I'm just going to start saying things. Do the data admins have the ability to create reports? That is not something that we have right now in the system. The reports themselves are essentially how we approached it in legacy system, where they were canned reports structured by case-worthy with our, obviously, based on our specifications, and that those are going to be the same for everybody. Now, we do have other opportunities to have the dashboard visualizations and queries and summaries that are a little bit different than reports, and those, as we move forward, we're going to provide the data admins different opportunities to have access to those things in the system. But right now, as we're rolling out, it's pretty well structured as it's going to be for a little while. So that is something to look forward to in the future. Do you have anything to add to that one?
No. I think, as Gretchen mentioned, and I kind of alluded to it earlier, that there are customization tools available within the system. The roles that you guys will have available to you to start will not feature that. We want to make sure that folks, number one, use the system correctly for what it's worth, and then number two, are comfortable with the system, and then can learn the customization tools and work with us in order to create not only meaningful items, not just data entry points maybe that we just do not have in our baseline, but also those summaries or queries that Gretchen had mentioned as well. So there will be some pretty special training, some invitations to either come here on site and do those kind of trainings, but that's not going to be tomorrow or at the rollout. Again, we want to make sure that folks are comfortable and can use the system and kind of understand how the system functions before we start giving them access to chop all our stuff up.
Yes, that is true. Yeah, we want to make sure people get comfortable with the system first before we start revising it or giving a lot of extra behind-the-scenes access. I'm trying to think of what's not too specific. So somebody also asked if existing student data will transfer into the new system. So the transfer from legacy system is scheduled for June 1st. This is going to be a very minimal amount of data. So your schools, and I will make sure to send you the details so that you know when you have to activate your users, your schools, essentially those things. And so right before June 1st, so like the last week of May essentially, is when we will need to pull the data out of old system, legacy system, for your active users so that you don't have to set up an entire affiliate's worth of users right off the bat. You'll thank us for that later. And all of the active schools will be brought over, so you don't have to set all those up either. And then all of the students from the 16-17 school year that were in those schools will come over. And that's pretty much it, just a basic student profile, and the school profiles will be there in the new system for your site coordinators to start using for the rollout this summer, so they can, find students they worked with last year. They're not completely starting from scratch. All of the rest of the data will be accessible to you in legacy system through September, and we will pull it out, export it, and give you everything sometime in this fall or winter. That I really don't know the specific timeline for when we can get you all of your old system data, but we will. You are not going to lose anything just because it's not going to be all transferred into the new system. And honestly, it would have been really difficult for us to try to crosswalk everything because the systems are so different. The look and feel and the way they're structured behind the scenes, I think it would have been a little crazy. So you'll have access to your data in CISDM itself through September. After that, everybody is cut off. So you can do your end of year report. It's still due in September, and then you're done. And we'll just get you files of your old data after that point. So that kind of got 2 questions out of the way. Somebody also asked about the capability of the new system about uploading or importing data from Excel or directly from a school information system like Infinite Campus. That is something that could potentially happen in the future, meaning like talking about the direct link to a school information system. Right now we are creating the ability to import data as we did in the previous system for metrics and new students. We're also adding a few other things that you weren't able to do in the last system, like importing lists of providers and kind of importing the exit information for students. So those things will probably, increase that list of items that can be imported from Excel spreadsheets as we move forward as kind of extra enhancements. But for now, it's pretty much what we have in the old system and a couple additional things. And some people seem to be wondering about information over time for the students. As whenever each student is entered in the system, they're there. Unless we have to delete them later or something, they're going to be there. Their enrollment history will be in the system throughout the time that they work with CIS, so you should be able to see their grade level in their schools and when they were served, their previous year's support plans and goals, and then this year's and things like that. So that those histories will exist over time, and we do have a process to transfer students from one school to another school within the system. So that should not be an issue. What else do people want to know? I think now new ones are coming into. Somebody asked about the time for the trainings. I forgot to mention, the plan is to have all of those trainings occur at 2 o'clock. At least on our end, it seems to be a really good time.
2 Eastern.
Yes, 2 Eastern time, and that's essentially why we always do things, I think, at 2 o'clock, so that we can accommodate the West Coast people without having it be too early on their end. A lot of them are scheduled for like a Monday and Thursday of each week, but there were other conflicts, so some of them are kind of Tuesday, Thursday. The week of Independence Day, we're going to still have our trainings. They're going to be on Wednesday and Thursday. So plan for all these at 2 o'clock. But, specific details will come out directly to my data contact email list, the weekly briefing. We'll have the links to join in WebEx and all that fun stuff. Any of these super important to we do have a training site that will be released first. Actually, maybe I can pull this up. Remind you of the overall timeline that I think, well, maybe not every single one of you has seen because there are a lot of people on this call, but most of you saw. As I mentioned already, the trainings at the top, and then this is the bottom part is when the demos are going to happen and when the sites will be released. So the data admins will have access to the real, quote-unquote, real site, the production site, on May 26th so that you can set up what you need for the site coordinators. And those are pretty much the same things that you were setting up in the old system. Obviously, you have to learn how to do it first, and that's why we have those virtual trainings the 2 weeks prior. But it should be, I think, pretty straightforward. It's any new users if they're not, well, I guess that would be before we move over the users from system anyway. So the users in school should come over. After that point, you'll have to, any brand new schools, you'd have to create yourself brand new users. The providers are something that you do, and the activities. So that's one thing that's a little different in CISDM. We have 3 levels of student support. So essentially, you're just setting up the 3rd level. Super easy. Wait, why won't this click over? Oh, there it goes. I'll just share it really quickly just so I don't confuse people. Okay. And this applies to Tier 2 and 3 supports as well as Tier 1 supports. You'll see here the support category, such as academic assistance. We have the 2nd level of supports that were created by the national office. So these help with alignment across the network and even within your own affiliate to have kind of a subcategory. And then the activity level is where you can put your specific activity. Before we had 2 levels and you were able to customize the 2nd one, and now you'll be doing that for the 3rd one. But it is something that you have to set. I'm trying to look if anything's in here. But this is something you would have to set up in advance for your
Try tutoring.
now we're just trying everything. Set up in advance in order for your site coordinators to be able to, oh gosh, this menu, to be able to use it. There we go. Power hour. Okay, now what other questions do we have? Okay, so to be very clear about legacy CISDM moving into the new system, site coordinators, affiliate staff, everybody will be using legacy. If you are already using it for this school year, if you are not in the pilot for CISDM 2.0, you will be using legacy CISDM for all of the end-of-year processes, for the goal achievement for your students, the end-of-year status, closing out everything in CISDM, doing the end-of-year report, which again is due at the beginning of September. All of that will happen in legacy CISDM. You should not be entering any data for the 17-18 school year because that will not be transferring over, so you'll have to do it again if any of your site coordinators start entering all of their stuff for the next school year in old CISDM. It's going to be lost. So focus on the 16-17 school year, get all of that in there and perfect, and then we'll all start together with 17-18.